The sun rose on a day like any other in the bustling colony of New Eden. Children laughed as they walked to school, their backpacks bouncing with each step. Parents waved goodbye, never imagining it would be for the last time. In the calm blue sky above, no one noticed the strange shimmer of cloaked ships entering the atmosphere. At precisely 9:15 a.m., colony time, the first explosion rocked the ground. Confused faces looked up, searching for answers in the once peaceful sky. Then, as if someone had torn a hole in the heavens, massive ships appeared. Their sleek alien designs left no doubt. The Galactic Council had arrived. Panic erupted in the streets. "Run!" a woman screamed, grabbing her child's hand. But there was nowhere to run. Green beams of energy lanced down from the ships, vaporizing everything they touched. Buildings crumbled. Trees turned to ash, and people, so many people, simply disappeared in flashes of sickly light. In the colony school, teacher Sarah huddled with her terrified students. "It's going to be okay," she lied, her voice shaking. The walls trembled as explosions drew closer. Tears streamed down young faces as the children clung to each other. A blinding flash, and the school was no more. Similar scenes played out across a dozen human colonies. The Galactic Council's attack was as swift as it was brutal. Their targets seemed random at first, until a horrible pattern emerged. They were going after the children. On Earth, the first distress calls came through garbled and confused. Admiral Chen of the United Earth Defense Force stared at the holographic displays in disbelief. "This can't be happening," he whispered. But the evidence was undeniable. Colony after colony reported the same thing. An overwhelming assault focused on population centers, schools, and anywhere children gathered. News spread like wildfire. Social media exploded with panicked messages and desperate pleas for information. Governments struggled to respond, their prepared statements woefully inadequate in the face of such an unthinkable atrocity. Back on New Eden, pockets of resistance formed. John, a retired Marine, grabbed his old rifle and rallied a group of survivors. "We have to protect the children," he shouted. They managed to shepherd a small group of kids into the underground tunnels. But for every child saved, hundreds more were lost. The Galactic Council's ships were relentless. They methodically swept across each colony, their sensors honed in on the unique energy signatures of young human bodies. No bunker was deep enough, no hiding place secure. Parents watched in horror as their children were literally ripped from their arms by tractor beams, pulled screaming into the sky. Hours stretched into days. The death toll climbed into the millions. Those who survived would never forget the sounds, the explosions, the screams, and worst of all, the eerie silence that followed. Finally, as suddenly as they had appeared, the Galactic Council ships vanished. They left behind worlds in ruin, populations decimated, and a wound in the heart of humanity that would never fully heal. On Earth, as the full scale of the massacre became clear, grief turned to rage. Crowds gathered outside government buildings, demanding action. "They killed our children." The chant grew louder, a primal roar of anguish and fury. In the Oval Office, the president of the United Earth Alliance sat with her head in her hands. An aide entered, his face ashen. "Madam President," he said, his voice barely a whisper, "the final numbers are in." She looked up, her eyes red-rimmed but steely with resolve. "Tell me." 23 million, Madam President. 23 million children. Gone. The president stood, her fists clenched at her sides. She walked to the window, looking out at the crowds gathering in the streets below. Their anger was palpable, a living thing that demanded satisfaction. She turned back to her aide, her voice cold and determined. "Get me the Defense Council, and send a message to every ship, every colony, every citizen of Earth and beyond." "What should it say, Madam President?" Her eyes flashed with a fire that would soon engulf the galaxy. "Tell them, humanity demands revenge." The news of the massacre spread across Earth like a tidal wave of sorrow. In every city, on every continent, Screens large and small showed the same horrifying images: burning colonies, destroyed schools, and the faces, so many faces, of the children who were gone. In New York, a young woman collapsed in the street, her phone clattering to the ground. The message on the screen was brutally simple. All students at New Eden Elementary confirmed deceased. Her son had been among them. Similar scenes played out worldwide. Grief knew no borders, no language barriers. Humanity wept as one. But as the initial shock faded, a new emotion began to take hold: anger. In London, a crowd gathered outside the United Earth Alliance headquarters. What started as a somber vigil soon turned into something more: justice for our children. Someone shouted. The cry was taken up, growing louder with each repetition. On social media, the hashtag #NeverForget began trending globally. People shared photos of the lost children, their smiling faces a stark contrast to the darkness that had befallen them. In the halls of power, leaders struggled to respond. The Galactic Council had always been seen as a distant, almost mythical entity. Now, they were the face of an evil beyond comprehension. Emergency sessions were called in every major government. In Brussels, the European Federation's parliament was in chaos. Representatives shouted over each other, demanding everything from immediate military action to a complete withdrawal from galactic affairs. Meanwhile, in Beijing, the Chinese leadership met in closed-door sessions. Their colonies had been hit hard, and the public demanded answers. The normally stoic officials were visibly shaken as they debated their next move. As the day wore on, a global broadcast was announced. People huddled around screens, desperate for guidance, for hope, for any explanation of why this had happened. The face that appeared was familiar to all: President Adama of the United Earth Alliance. Her normally warm eyes were steel, her voice firm as she addressed the planet. My fellow citizens of Earth, today we face the darkest hour in human history. The attack on our colonies, the senseless slaughter of our children, is an atrocity that cannot and will not go unanswered. She paused, her gaze seeming to meet every viewer personally. To those who have lost loved ones, know that all of humanity stands with you. Your pain is our pain. Your loss is our loss. The president's tone shifted, a hint of the rage felt by billions creeping in. To the Galactic Council, hear me clearly. Your actions have united humanity as never before. We will not rest until justice is served. The full might of Earth and all her colonies will be brought to bear. Across the globe, people stood straighter, fists clenched at their sides. The president's words gave voice to their pain, their anger. As of this moment, I am ordering a full mobilization of our military forces. All reserves are to report for duty. Our shipyards will begin immediate production of warships. And to our brightest minds, your planet needs you. Every laboratory, every research facility is to focus on one goal: developing the technology to defeat those who would harm our children. The speech continued, outlining plans for aid to the devastated colonies, for a memorial to the lost, for a new era of human unity in the face of an incomprehensible enemy. As the broadcast ended, a moment of silence fell across the earth. Then, as if a switch had been flipped, the world erupted into action. Military recruitment centers were flooded. Scientists abandoned personal projects to answer their planet's call. And in homes everywhere, parents held their remaining children close, vowing that such a tragedy would never happen again. The massacre had awakened a sleeping giant. Humanity had been attacked, wounded deeply. Now, it prepared for war. As Earth prepared for war, a different kind of battle was being fought in the shadows. Operation Truthseeker, a top-secret initiative, brought together the best minds from intelligence agencies worldwide. Their mission: to uncover why the Galactic Council had turned on humanity so violently. In a hidden bunker deep beneath the Swiss Alps, analysts pored over every scrap of data from the attacked colonies. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, a brilliant xenolinguist, noticed something odd in the Council's attack patterns. "Look here," she said, pointing to a holographic map. The attacks weren't random. They followed a specific sequence. Her colleague, former CIA operative Jack Donovan, leaned in. "You're right. It's almost like they were following a script." As they dug deeper, a disturbing picture began to emerge. The Galactic Council's actions seemed to be guided by an ancient prophecy, but the source of this prophecy remained a mystery. Meanwhile, on the fringes of human space, a lone scout ship picked up an unusual signal. Captain Maria Vasquez made a bold decision. Against orders, she followed the signal to its source, a small, uncharted planet. What she found there would change everything. Hidden in a cave, protected by technology far beyond human understanding, was an artifact. It pulsed with an eerie light, and as Vasquez approached, images flooded her mind. She saw the massacre, but from the perspective of the attackers. She felt their fear, their misguided belief that they were saving the galaxy from a terrible fate. Back on Earth, the truth seekers made another breakthrough. Dr. Tanaka decoded a series of encrypted transmissions between council members. What she found chilled her to the bone. "They're not united," she told the team. "A faction within the council orchestrated the attack. They believe human children are a threat to their power." Jack slammed his fist on the table. "So it's not just genocide, it's a power play." As these discoveries were made, Captain Vasquez raced back to Earth with her findings. Her ship, pushing its engines to the limit, arrived just as the truth seekers were presenting their results to United Earth leadership. The meeting was tense. Military leaders argued for immediate, all-out war. Politicians worried about the consequences of attacking the entire Galactic Council. It was into this charged atmosphere that Vasquez burst, her uniform disheveled, her eyes wild with the importance of her discovery. "Wait," she shouted. "There's more to the story." All eyes turned to her as she explained what she had found. The artifact, the visions, the misguided fear that had driven the Council to such a horrific act. President Adama listened intently, her brow furrowed. When Vasquez finished, the room erupted into chaos. Accusations flew. How could they trust this information? Was it a trick? But Dr. Tanaka saw the connection. "This matches our findings," she said, her quiet voice somehow cutting through the noise. "The faction we uncovered, they must have twisted this prophecy for their own ends." A hush fell over the room as the implications sank in. They weren't facing a united enemy. The Galactic Council itself had been deceived, manipulated by corrupt members into committing an atrocity. President Adama stood, her decision clear in her eyes. "This changes things," she said, "but it doesn't change everything. Millions of our children are still dead." She turned to the military leaders. "Continue our preparations for war, but now we have a more specific target." To the intelligence team, she said, "Find us allies within the Council. There must be those who oppose what was done." And to Captain Vasquez, a nod of respect. "Your initiative may have saved countless lives. We'll need that artifact." As the meeting adjourned, a new sense of purpose filled the room. The path ahead was still dark, still fraught with danger. But now, at least, they had a glimmer of understanding. It wasn't just a fight for revenge anymore. It was a fight to save the galaxy from itself. The grim reality of impending war settled over Earth like a heavy shroud. Yet beneath the sorrow, a fire burned, a determination to protect what remained and to seek justice for the fallen. In the sprawling shipyards orbiting Mars, work continued around the clock. Massive skeletal frames of new warships took shape against the starry backdrop. Engineer Raj Patel wiped sweat from his brow as he inspected the latest prototype. "How's she looking, Raj?" called out his colleague, Sarah Chen. Raj patted the ship's hull. "She'll be the fastest thing in the galaxy, Sarah. Those council bastards won't know what hit them." On Earth, training centers sprang up like mushrooms after rain. In one such facility, nestled in the Rocky Mountains, drill sergeant Miguel Ortiz barked orders at a group of recruits. "Move it, people. The enemy won't wait for you to catch your breath." Among the recruits was Lisa Zhang, a school teacher who had lost her entire class in the massacre. Her face set with grim determination, she pushed herself harder than anyone. Meanwhile, in laboratories across the globe, scientists worked tirelessly to develop new technologies. In a high-tech facility beneath the streets of Tokyo, Dr. Yuki Tanaka, now reassigned from intelligence to weapons development, made a breakthrough. "It's working," she exclaimed, her eyes wide with excitement and lack of sleep. The device in front of her hummed to life, projecting a shimmering energy field. Her team gathered around, faces lit by the glow of the shield. "Is it strong enough?" one asked. Yuki nodded. "It can withstand their energy weapons. Our ships will have a fighting chance now." As humanity prepared its defenses, diplomatic efforts continued in secret. Jack Donovan, the ex-CIA operative, found himself in a shadowy meeting on a neutral space station. Across the table sat Exilith, a member of the Galactic Council who opposed the massacre. The alien's multifaceted eyes regarded Jack warily. "You understand the risk I'm taking by meeting you," Exilith's translator conveyed. Jack nodded. "We appreciate it. Now, what can you tell us about the Council's defenses?" As they talked, Jack realized the enormity of the task ahead. The corrupt Council members were entrenched, their power vast. But now, at least humanity had allies. Back on Earth, President Adama addressed a joint session of the United Earth Congress. The room was packed, the atmosphere tense. "We do not seek this war," she said, her voice firm. "But we will not shy away from it. The Galactic Council, or at least those responsible within it, brought this conflict to our doorstep. They murdered our children, and they will answer for it." Cheers erupted from the assembled leaders. Adama raised her hand for silence. "But let us not lose ourselves in our quest for justice. We fight not just for vengeance, but for a future where such atrocities can never happen again. We fight for a galaxy where our children, all children, can grow up in peace." As the speech concluded, the wheels of war turned faster. Factories churned out weapons and supplies. Recruitment numbers swelled. The first fleet of new warships prepared for launch. In homes across Earth and the surviving colonies, families said tearful goodbyes. Parents hugged children tight, promising to return. Lovers shared one last kiss before duty called them to the stars. Lisa Zhang, now graduated from basic training, stood with her unit, waiting to board a transport ship. She clutched a photo of her lost students. "I won't let you down," she whispered to the smiling faces. The ship's engines roared to life. Across the planet, similar scenes played out. Humanity was on the move, united in purpose, steeled for the trials ahead. As the first ships broke atmosphere, a mixture of fear and hope filled every heart. The war to save the galaxy and to avenge the fallen was about to begin. The vast emptiness of space was shattered by the arrival of humanity's fleet. Sleek warships, their hulls gleaming with new tech, dropped out of hyperspace near a key Galactic Council outpost. Operation Thunderbolt had begun. On the bridge of the flagship Avenger, Admiral Chen stood tall, his eyes fixed on the tactical display. "All ships, report in," he commanded. One by one, the captains confirmed their readiness. Among them was Captain Lisa Zhang, once a teacher, now commanding the destroyer Nemesis. "Nemesis, standing by," she said, her voice steady despite the butterflies in her stomach. Admiral Chen nodded. "Remember your training. Remember why we fight. Commence attack." The human fleet surged forward. The Council outpost, caught off guard, scrambled to respond. Their defense systems, formidable against most threats, had never faced the full fury of a humanity out for justice. Raj Patel's new engines proved their worth. Human ships danced between enemy fire, their speed and agility unlike anything the Council had seen. Dr. Tanaka's shields flickered to life, absorbing energy blasts that would have vaporized older vessels. On the Nemesis, Lisa gripped her command chair. "Target their communication array," she ordered. "Cut them off from calling reinforcements." Her weapons officer, A young man named Alex complied. A burst of concentrated fire erupted from the Nemesis, striking the outpost's comms tower with pinpoint accuracy. It exploded in a shower of sparks and debris. Across the battlefield, similar scenes played out. Human ships struck with precision, disabling key systems rather than outright destroying them. This wasn't just an attack, it was a message. In the outpost's command center, chaos reigned. Council members from various species rushed about, their usual air of superiority replaced by panic. "How is this possible?" bellowed Commander Zix, his tentacles flailing. "They're primitives. They shouldn't have this technology." His aide, a younger alien named Vex, looked up from a console. "Sir, they're hailing us." On the main screen, Admiral Chen's face appeared. "This is Admiral Chen of the United Earth Fleet. Your outpost is surrounded. Surrender, and you will be treated fairly under galactic law." Commander Zix sputtered in rage, but Vex saw the writing on the wall. With a swift movement, he stunned his superior and turned to the screen. "We surrender," he said simply. As human troops boarded the outpost, a cheer went up across the fleet. First blood had been drawn, and humanity had emerged victorious. But the real shock came as prisoners were processed. Many of the Council species were horrified to learn of the massacre of human children. They had been kept in the dark, fed propaganda by the corrupt leadership. On the Nemesis, Lisa interviewed a captured Council scientist. "Why?" she asked, her voice cracking. "Why target our children?" The alien looked at her with 4 sad eyes. "We were told they were a threat, that human children would grow to destroy the galaxy. I'm so sorry. We were deceived." As news of the victory spread, reactions across the galaxy were mixed. Some Council worlds, learning the truth, denounced their leadership and pledged support to the human cause. Others doubled down, preparing for a protracted conflict. On Earth, President Adama addressed a tense press conference. "Today's victory is just the beginning," she said. "We have shown the galaxy that humanity will not be trifled with. But our goal remains justice, not vengeance. We extend an open hand to those who would join us in reforming the Galactic Council, even as we clench our fist against those who would harm us." As the first day of the war drew to a close, Lisa stood in her quarters on the Nemesis. She looked at the photo of her lost students, then at a new one, her ship's crew. "We did it," she whispered. "This is for you, for all of you." The battle was won, but the war was far from over. Humanity had taken its first step into a larger, more dangerous galaxy. The path ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear: the universe would never be the same again. The stars themselves seemed to hold their breath as 2 massive fleets faced each other near the Galactic Council's headquarters. On one side, the combined might of humanity and their new allies. On the other, the remaining Council forces, led by those who had orchestrated the massacre of Earth's children. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of the Avenger, his face grim. "All ships, report in." One by one, the captains confirmed their readiness. Captain Lisa Zhang's voice came through clear and determined. "Nemesis, standing by." "Admiral." Chen nodded. "This is it, people. Everything we fought for comes down to this. For Earth, for our children. Attack." The space between the fleets erupted in a dazzling display of weapons fire. Laser beams crisscrossed the void, while missiles left fiery trails in their wake. Ships on both sides exploded in brilliant flashes, lives snuffed out in an instant. On the Nemesis, Lisa barked orders. Evasive maneuvers. Target their flagship's engines. Her helmsman, Sarah, expertly guided the ship through the chaos. Debris from destroyed vessels bounced off their shields as they closed in on the Council's command ship. Suddenly, a massive energy beam lanced out from the Council flagship, cutting through several human vessels like paper. "New weapon detected," shouted Lisa's tactical officer, Alex. "Our shields can't handle that." Lisa gritted her teeth. "Send word to the fleet. Concentrate fire on the source of that beam." Across the battlefield, Similar scenes of heroism and tragedy played out. The human ship Defiant sacrificed itself to save a group of Allied vessels. The Council cruiser Hammer of Justice, realizing it had been fighting for the wrong side, turned its guns on its former comrades. In the midst of the chaos, a small, stealthy ship slipped through the Council's defenses. On board were Jack Donovan and Dr. Yuki Tanaka, along with a team of elite operatives. Their mission: to infiltrate the Council headquarters and expose the truth to the entire galaxy. As they docked with the massive station, Jack turned to Yuki. "Ready for this?" She nodded, clutching a device containing all the evidence they had gathered. "Let's finish this." Back in space, the battle reached a fever pitch. The Council's superweapon was wreaking havoc, but the combined fleet was slowly gaining ground. Admiral Chen's voice crackled over the comms. "All ships, this is it. Push forward with everything you've got." On the Nemesis, Lisa saw her chance. "There's a gap in their defenses. We're going for their flagship." The Nemesis surged forward, guns blazing. They took hit after hit, but Dr. Tanaka's shields held. Barely. As they closed in, Lisa could see the Council flagship's bridge through the view screen. "Fire everything we've got," she commanded. The Nemesis unleashed a barrage that overwhelmed the flagship's weakened defenses. Explosions rippled across its hull. Inside the Council headquarters, Jack and Yuki fought their way to the central communication hub. Council guards fell before them, but not without cost. Jack clutched a bleeding wound in his side. Almost there, Yuki encouraged him, supporting his weight. They burst into the comm center, quickly overpowering the surprise technicians. Yuki rushed to the main console and plugged in their device. "Uploading now," she said, fingers flying over the controls. "This will broadcast the truth to every corner of the galaxy." As the upload bar reached 100%, a cheer went up across the human fleet. The Council's remaining ships began to stand down as the truth of the corruption within their ranks spread. On the Nemesis, battered but victorious, Lisa allowed herself a small smile. She looked at the photo of her lost students. "We did it," she whispered. "It's over." But even as victory seemed assured, a final desperate transmission came from the Council flagship. "You think this ends here?" A hate-filled voice snarled. "We'll see you all in oblivion." The flagship's core went critical, a blinding light engulfing everything nearby. As the shockwave approached, Lisa closed her eyes, hoping their shields would hold one last time. The fate of the fleet and the future of the galaxy hung in the balance as the light engulfed them all. The blinding light faded, revealing a scene of destruction and wonder. The Council flagship's explosion had torn a hole in space itself, creating a swirling vortex of energy. But around it, protected by a shimmering bubble, floated the combined fleet of humanity and their allies. On the bridge of the Nemesis, Captain Lisa Jung opened her eyes in disbelief. "We're alive. How?" Her science officer, a young prodigy named Zora, looked up from her console in awe. "It's the shields, Captain. Somehow, they've adapted. They're not just deflecting energy now, they're absorbing it." Across the fleet, similar scenes of amazement played out. Dr. Yuki Tanaka's shields had evolved beyond anyone's expectations, saving countless lives in the process. As the immediate danger passed, the real work began. The Galactic Council headquarters, now under control of the Allied forces, became the center of a new galactic order. In a vast chamber, once reserved for Council elites, representatives from hundreds of worlds gathered. Admiral Chen, his uniform still bearing scorch marks from the battle, addressed the assembly. "We stand at a crossroads," he began, his voice echoing through the hall. "The old Council is no more, but the galaxy still needs leadership. We must build something new, something better." Over the next weeks, a new governing body took shape. It wasn't just a human victory. It was a victory for all species who sought justice and peace. The corrupt council members who had orchestrated the massacre were put on trial, their crimes laid bare for all to see. On Earth, the mood was bittersweet. Celebrations of victory were tempered by remembrance for the children lost. In a solemn ceremony, President Adama unveiled a memorial, a massive sculpture of a child reaching for the stars, built from the remnants of the first ship to fall in the Great Battle. "We will never forget," Adama said, her voice thick with emotion. "But we will move forward. Our children's legacy will be a galaxy united in peace." As the new Galactic Alliance took shape, there were still challenges to face. Some worlds remained loyal to the old council, requiring careful diplomacy, or in some cases, further military action. But with each passing day, more joined the cause of unity. Captain Lisa Jong found herself promoted to admiral, tasked with leading peacekeeping efforts. As she prepared for her first mission, she visited a school on one of the former council worlds. The children there, a mix of species she once would have considered alien, looked up at her with a mixture of awe and curiosity. One small tentacled child raised an appendage. "Is it true?" the child asked through a translator. "Did your people really fight a war for children you'd never even met?" Lisa knelt down, meeting the child's eyes. "We fought for all children," she said softly, "including you." The impact of the war rippled across the galaxy in unexpected ways. The technology developed for conflict was repurposed for peace. Dr. Tanaka's shields were adapted to protect vulnerable worlds from natural disasters. The faster-than-light engines designed by Raj Patel allowed for better communication and trade between distant planets. Jack Donovan, recovering from his wounds, found a new calling in diplomacy, bridging gaps between former enemies. And Yuki Tanaka turned her brilliant mind to unlocking the mysteries of the artifact that had started it all, hoping to prevent future misunderstandings from leading to war. Years passed. The galaxy healed, grew, and changed. On the anniversary of the massacre, now a solemn holiday across countless worlds, Admiral Lisa Jong stood on the observation deck of a space station orbiting Earth. She watched as ships from 100 worlds released clouds of luminescent particles, creating a breathtaking stellar tapestry. As the lights swirled to form the image of a child's face, Lisa thought of her lost students, of the billions who had suffered, and of the trillions now living in a more united and peaceful galaxy. "We remember," she whispered, a tear sliding down her cheek, "and we move forward together." The stars seemed to shine a little brighter that night, as if in agreement. The galaxy had faced its darkest hour and emerged stronger. The future, at last, looked bright.